Adversaries aren't waiting for a functional quantum computer to begin attacks. They are actively intercepting encrypted data packets today, locking them in cold storage. Because this traffic is being stockpiled right now, the timeline of the threat is tied to when your data was harvested, not when the hardware is finished. Long-term assets, state secrets, weapon schematics, and proprietary pharmaceutical formulas captured today remain fully exposed to future decryption. The arrival of a cryptographically relevant quantum computer, a machine with the specific processing power required to decrypt these captured archives. Quantum computing has moved from small-scale academic experiments into a phase of documented industry roadmaps and aggressive engineering milestones. In 2019, we saw the first claims of quantum supremacy. By the end of 2023, IBM released the Condor processor, surpassing 1,121 qubits. The hardware is scaling on an exponential curve. The combination of ongoing data harvesting and accelerating hardware development means the quantum threat is a present-day exposure risk, requiring a reassessment of long-term data security. Global regulatory bodies recognize this timeline. Agencies like NIST, the NSA, and CISA are treating the transition as a critical national security priority. They are explicitly directing organizations to build comprehensive cryptographic inventories and integrate them into their risk assessment processes. Yet, despite the availability of new algorithms and heavy regulatory pressure, large-scale enterprise preparation is stalling. A global survey of CXOs reveals the problem. The average quantum safe readiness score is exactly 21 out of 100. The root cause lies in the earliest phase, discovery. Here, organizations average a score of just 10.43 out of 50. Discovery is the baseline requirement of any migration. It requires finding and cataloging exactly where and how encryption is used across a network. You cannot secure what you cannot see. Modern enterprises are operating with systemic blind spots regarding their own cryptographic dependencies. Why is it so difficult for established IT organizations to locate their own encryption? The answer lies in the Y2Q fallacy, the assumption that migrating to post-quantum cryptography is a routine software patch. In practice, legacy cryptography is rarely consolidated into a single, easily locatable module. Over decades of development, cryptographic primitives like keys, certificates, and hash functions have been scattered across the IT environment. These elements are buried deep within millions of lines of source code, woven into third-party vendor libraries, and hard-coded into CI/CD deployment pipelines. This entanglement creates severe architectural debt. The security mechanisms are fused directly to the business logic of the applications. Attempting a drop-in replacement of an old algorithm, like RSA, with a new standard like Kyber, into this tangled architecture will inevitably break the system. Resolving this debt requires a structural overhaul known as cryptographic agility. Cryptographic agility is the systemic engineering practice of decoupling cryptographic functions from the underlying application logic. Mechanically, this requires extracting the encryption protocols from the source code and isolating them into an independent, externalized module. By externalizing these modules, engineers can swap out deprecated algorithms for new quantum-safe standards without having to rewrite or disrupt the core application above. This separation of concerns also demands the modernization of legacy public key infrastructure and key management systems. These upgraded management systems must be engineered to track and issue certificates dynamically across distributed hybrid and multi-cloud environments. Implementing cryptographic agility turns the PQC migration from a high-risk, system-breaking event into a manageable, routine operational procedure. Executing this agility at an enterprise scale requires a highly structured approach, mapped out in the IBM Quantum Safe Execution Framework. The framework begins at the technical foundation: business units, applications, and platforms. The directive at this tier is to transform legacy systems, externalize crypto from code, and embed secure app migration directly into DevOps pipelines. Moving up, the framework addresses the external supply chain through the third parties and suppliers tier. An enterprise is only as secure as its external data flows. This layer mandates strict validation of external certificates, secure API integrations, and legally enforcing PQC standards in vendor contracts. The entire structure is governed by the top tier, enterprise and strategy. This is the control plane. It sets the vision, drives top-down policies, and ensures consistent cryptographic standards are applied across all divisions. Without this precise, three-tiered alignment, internal developers, external partners, and executive leadership will remain out of sync, and the migration will stall. A transition of this scale exceeds the authority and budget of an isolated IT engineering department. Managing this complexity requires a dedicated operational hub, a PQC Center of Excellence. This center forces cross-enterprise alignment, demanding direct executive ownership from the C-suite and strategic prioritization from the board of directors. It also addresses the financial mechanics of the migration, establishing a structured 5 to 10-year funding horizon and clearly separating CapEx investments from ongoing OpEx planning. Prioritization within the center is driven by an enterprise risk heat map, calibrated against legal exposure, industry benchmarking, and long-term data protection requirements. Solving the cryptographic discovery problem is a business governance challenge. It requires a hard executive mandate and dedicated capital to push the engineering forward. But even with strict internal governance, no single organization can execute a shift to post-quantum cryptography in isolation. We rely on global consortia to unite the ecosystem and establish baseline credibility across the market. Active participation with these alliances drives the technical standards, open source development, and telecommunications frameworks needed to scale adoption worldwide. The quantum threat forces a deeper evolution in how we approach security architecture. This requires moving away from static defense models, which rely on hard-coded algorithms and the assumption that current encryption will remain permanently secure. The transition to post-quantum cryptography is the forcing function to achieve true cyber resilience, engineering systems agile enough to absorb, adapt to, and survive the cryptoanalytic breakthroughs of the future.